Welcome. Welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. This is a transformation series, mind, body, and spirit. And we're at this moment getting ready to talk about a topic that is so helpful to our community. We're getting ready to talk about something that we know every day: history of Black people and faith and the power of expectations. So I'm going to bring on um, Dr. Walker. Yes, something has happened to the screen. I don't know what happened to it. But I'm going to bring on Dr. Walker, who is Associate Pastor of the Shrine for Black Madonna. He's Associate Professor here in Houston. He has served as Urban and Outreach Director at Texas Southern University. He has written quite a few books, I might add, and one with whom I'm reading right now that I'm excited about, and I'm just trying my best to get, is Stand Your Ground. So I am excited about reading that. But I want to bring on um, Doc Walker to discuss with us this topic of, and I wanted to really ask the first question. I just can't wait. So, can you just share with us of all of your experience? How did you get involved with your writing about the Black experience?
Wow. I had an English teacher back in seventh grade that really encouraged me to write, but it was really the words of my mother who literally told me, "You are a writer," and I believed her. And from then on, no matter what job I've had, um, I've always ended up being the writer, working on the newsletter, the newspaper, the
Mhm.
communications, whatever. And so I've just always written and written and written. And, then in college, being a part of the anti-apartheid movement, being a part of the Black student, uh, the BSA and Steve Biko Committee and all these progressive organizations, and becoming an activist, the writing tended to focus on not only our history, but what's going on now and where are we going in the future. And so that's where my writing has gone.
Mhm.
Um, and so I've written a few textbooks. I've written this, that, and the other. But then I started getting into fiction because really inspired by Walter Mosley. Walter Mosley is like my favorite author because he has this series, the Easy Rollins series, um, where because I'm a preacher, I can be preachy. And
Mhm.
but in his books, he incredible stories, incredible characters, but he does a wonderful job of just laying out the history, because in those Easy Rollins mysteries, they start in the 1940s and move up each time they progress. And so he's spotlighting a different part of Black history, but he also does a powerful job of social commentary without being preachy. Like he'll really comment on what's going on in society, but he does it in a way that's not preachy, so you can get it without feeling like someone's trying to bang you over the head with it. And I was like, man, I want to write like that. And so that's when I started doing some fiction writing. So Stand Your Ground is one of those works, but I have a few other fiction works too.
Yes. Well, I'm getting into it. I've read a lot of traditional stuff and whatever, but I'm getting into it and liking the way that you describe it as you go along. So I like that writing style.
All
So I
right.
was sharing it with someone, and they wanted to know, can you teach people in certain congregations and certain pastors and some other people who are interested? Can you have a writing clinic? And I said, well, sure, he's doing webinars now. And sure, he can do that. I said, he's slotted to come on. His publicity goes out in January, and he's slotted for February. Yes, you can sign up right now. So when I go out on Saturday the 14th, I'll
Let
be
them know.
signing people up. That's right.
Let
And
them know.
on Wednesday, I hope you're going to be on the third Wednesday of this month, and we can get some people to sign up there. So I think so, and I'll talk with you before that. But I'm excited to always have you here as a co-host and guest to inform those that are on Facebook at this moment this morning, and those that will be listening to us on Culture Vision TV on 7 o'clock on next Tuesday.
And can we just have a quick shout out for that new opening to Mending Threads,
Oh,
man?
did you like that? Did you like that? Oh, you like that music? Okay, so now what they're asking me to do is when it comes on, it has this sound. They want me to do a little breathing with them before we get into the thing. After we introduce it, to just kind of go along with the sound and
Yeah,
have the breathing. So I'm considering that. You know,
consider it.
that's right. Consider it. So you got into this back when you were adolescent, when you were active in some of the student council in those particular areas. Hmm.
I do.
So who is your individual? Is there a person or a situation that inspired you? For the when you think about that,
That inspired me to be involved in black stuff, or inspired me to write. What?
inspired you to be a community activist and to write what you write.
Um, Parents. I remember specifically one incident when I was in seventh grade. I probably shared this on this medium before. Um, but in Texas, when you're in the seventh grade, it is required, or at least that's what it felt like, that you take Texas history. And I'm learning Texas history, and I'm learning about the Alamo and all these great heroes of the Alamo and all this. And I'm so excited. And when I go home, I can't wait to tell my parents what I learned about Texas history and all these incredible Bowie and this person and that person. And so I tell my dad the story, everything that I learned. And at the end, I said, yeah, and all these incredible heroes, and they all died, but they died for Texas. And my dad asked me the question. He said, well, if they died, who told the story? Who told you that story? I mean, if they're all dead. Um, and I was like, oh my God. He said, look, whatever you learn, please think and ask questions. Think and ask questions. And so from that
Right.
moment on, whatever I read, whatever I heard from teachers or whoever, I would have to think and ask questions. And the other incident that really inspired me was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, where he talked about that moment in his life when he realized that there was so much about our history and our story that wasn't being taught, that he had to go learn for himself. And so those two incidents, probably more than any others, really inspired me to be a lifelong learner and to focus on our story, because that's what's
Mhm.
being whited out.
Yes. So I wanted to get into our topic today and kind of ease into that a little bit, to look at history of Black people in faith. And they teach us the Bible, and I long wanted someone to teach the history of maps with the story of the
Yes.
Bible. I have, if that's my bucket list. I would take that class right now. If
Mm.
I could get the old and the new maps and somebody teach the history of the Bible, the events and the people with that, that would be so fulfilling to my mind and my heart. Because what you think has a lot to do. What you hear, what you think influences what we do. And that is a big thing on my bucket list. So I sure hope that you're going to be able to come on up with this some kind of way, because I do know I'm not the only one standing there. You see?
Oh, definitely. And I've said this a gazillion times that I think geography has to be a huge part of what churches teach.
Teach.
um, because like you can't tell the story of anybody without giving them, without sharing the context out of which they lived. Where they lived matters,
Mhm,
who
mhm.
they were around, and who influenced. All those things pour into who that individual is, how they think, how they operated.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so to try to teach about different figures without that historical context is doing a gross disservice. And so, like when we talk about the Bible story, Lord have mercy. So the Old Testament, the Old Testament, um, the history of it was lived and over before whites even entered into Africa in any conquering type of level. And so you're talking about the Old Testament had already been lived and written about and read and all those things even before there were any Europeans to come into that part of the world in any form of power. And so this idea that Christianity is a Eurocentric reality is insane, but you don't get that if you don't
Mhm.
understand maps and
Mhm.
chronological timelines and all that. So I'm with you, Doctor. I'm with you on that.
Well, we're gonna make that. We're gonna see how that can happen.
Yeah.
So, one of the things is that when you look at the history of Black people in faith,
Mm-hmm.
how do you, when we're speaking of chronologically or the mix, how do you see that mix occurring? You know, hmm
Well, I want to say um, because as I was jotting down my notes and thinking about what I wanted to share, um, I am relying heavily upon a sermon that I just heard preached by one of my mentors. He's the presiding bishop of the Shrine of the Black Madonna, um, Bishop Kimothy Nelson. His last sermon was entitled, What Do You Expect? What Do You Expect? And
hmm
I just think he did a Herculean job of laying all that out. So I'm sharing these words, but
okay.
it's me paraphrasing um, his words, and I hope I do
Well, you
a
should have
decent.
had him on here with us this morning. So
I couldn't get him because
you
believe me, I
could.
wanted him to be here talking himself,
Yes, yes.
and
Well,
I
that's
will be inviting him in the future, but we couldn't make that happen today.
that's right. Well, I'm really working on a panel
Hmm.
for Mending Threads, so maybe that he can be a part of the um, educating panel for pastors and leaders and community.
That would be powerful. That would be powerful. But I guess the thesis of what he was saying is, you know, Black folk have relied on positive expectations all our lives for generations. And he said positive expectations, another word for that's faith. Faith is the belief in positive expectations. And
hmm
he was talking about how, and he didn't want to break it down because there's scientifically proven research that your expectations literally change you physiologically,
It
change
does.
it
hmm
changes you in all manners. It's not as if it actually does occur, but what you expect then moves your mind, body, and spirit towards exactly that. And so your expectations can be either positive or negative, whichever ones they are, you will start to do things, you will start to think and start to act in ways that bring about exactly what it is you expect. If you expect negative, you will make it happen. If you
You will make it
expect
happen.
positives,
hmm
you will make it happen. And so the power of expectations was really kind of like the thesis of his sermon. But dealing with African history, he was like,
hmm
it's incredible that um, during enslavement, more owners of the enslaved committed suicide than the enslaved themselves. Because
hmm
even though we were being oppressed and abused, we still had positive expectations for our future. We still
hmm
believed in a better day.
hmm
During the late 1920s, early 1930s, the Great
hmm
Depression, um, suicide rates were skyrocketing among whites, especially wealthy whites, because they could not fathom life without
Mm-hmm.
money, without their wealth. But we who had little of nothing and probably had no reason to expect positive, we still expected a better day. And so,
Can I share something with you?
yeah, go ahead.
Right on that note, hold it because you need to write that down. What you just said, what you just said. So there was a small grant on the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
and it was out of the farmers group. It's an outreach for farmers and people who are coming in, migrant workers and those persons.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they found is the reason you were saying had no reason, even during difficult times. What we found when we were doing that little piece of research is that it had something to do with putting your hands not only on the dirt, but growing something and seeing that it grows because we were the workers and we saw things being created by our hands. And that gave us the understanding that something was more powerful when you
Mm.
ask the person. Whereas when you're in the upper echelon, you're dealing with things that are not basic, that are not result of directly result of. So when you
Mm-hmm.
said that, that's it. What came to my mind is when we discovered that the migrant workers and the farmers and other people, you seldom hear about certain illnesses, mental health, those things, until they move to a level where things are not basic or connected.
Wow, that's really powerful. And when
Mm-hmm.
you said that, you reminded me of something that my wife talks about all the time. She says, at some point during the day, I have to go outside. I have to allow my feet to touch the ground so I can be grounded. So I can be
Mhm.
grounded. There's really something to that.
It is. My husband used to, I'll just share this, and he would go like, I just don't know how you can walk around without any shoes. And I said, I don't know how you can keep shoes on all day. I have to take my shoes off. And when I take my shoes off and I feel so real.
Yeah,
It's like I can feel everything. I can sense things more. And it especially, I go to the country. I pull my shoes off and put my feet in the dirt and in the sand, and this is when I'm really feeling good. I'm feeling
yeah,
good. You see, so
yeah.
it's something to that. Hmm.
Absolutely,
Well, your
absolutely.
wife, she's right on target.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, she knows. She lets me know. Um, but Daniel Patrick Moynihan, you remember that famous the Moynihan report?
Yes,
I think it
yes,
came
for the
out in
family. Hmm.
1968. Um, he said, and I don't have the exact quote, but basically what he said was, black people have an amazing resiliency that has allowed them to, go through hell and back. They have been
Hmm.
abused, mistreated, under resourced, undereducated, all these things, yet they have survived, and they have survived what a lesser race, what a lesser people could not have survived. And it's because their resiliency. He said resiliency, but I would argue it's because of our faith. It's our commitment to the power of positive expectations, believing that a better reality is just beyond the horizon if we keep on keeping on, and if we keep on climbing up the rough side of the mountain, if we keep our eyes on the prize. I mean, all of our songs remind
Hmm.
us that
Telling
we've
them.
got to have these positive expectations. And it's a powerful thing. Long distance.
Can I say cite something on what you're saying in
Oh
terms of
yeah.
so I had a patient this morning, a gentleman, and he is having difficulty with relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's constantly looking at whether something fits in or not. And when it doesn't fit in, he just breaks that relationship up. And
Mm.
so I was asking him, how do you dance in this relationship? How do you believe in this relationship? How do you connect in the relationship? Well, if it doesn't fit in, you just let it go. So I was asking, well, how do you learn? So he hasn't figured out that he's not believe his disbelief in the relationship itself is actually disconnecting his ability to contact or connect with healthy relationships, with good relationships, however you want to describe it. So, and I'd say, well, let's not look at it like this. Maybe we could look at it like this. Now, this is what I'm thinking you're saying.
That's
So,
exactly it.
what? So now, in reality, what you would then begin to do is, instead of judging the outcomes, you would engage in the process, and you would believe in the process, and you would just go along with that until you could see that it may be harmful, but trusting that and that then that's when you could take care of it instead of taking care of it so soon.
Yeah, yeah.
You
He
see?
expects the relationship to go bad,
Yes.
and then he it's kind of similar to that saying, whatever it is that you expect to see, you see. We create in our minds it we create in our minds a particular vision, and then we start looking for things to prove that that vision is a reality. We
Mm-hmm.
actually make it happen. It's the same exact
Mm-hmm.
concept.
Mm-hmm.
If you expect to be able to get through those rough patches in a relationship, you can get through those rough patches. But if you expect every relationship you get into to for your partner to let you down, or for you to let your partner down, you make it happen. You literally make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think first, having the belief and the faith that you could go through it means that you could test out what's so hurtful that would make you want to do that. See, once you really begin to look at what is it that's so hurtful that I cannot express something or say something, then you have to look at what is it that I need and what is it I can give. You see,
Hmm.
and so you can't do the process if you're stuck on there, in the hurt. So you can't move forward. You can't dance,
Right.
so to speak. Mm-hmm.
Can't dance.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that stood out from that sermon by Bishop Kimathi was he talked about the ancient Egyptians had a practice, a particular ritual where they would envision themselves, and different cultures have this same process. They may call it different things, but it's where you um, expend all, where you kind of close yourself off to conscious thought, and you are in a meditative state, but you are in the process of trying to visualize and see yourself in the future and doing and accomplishing all those things that you hope, dream that the creator wants you to accomplish. But
Mm-hmm.
because you do this on a regular basis, you're almost like programming your mind, body, and spirit to be able to actually do those things. And so when people look at the accomplishments of the ancient Egyptians, being able to give the world religion, art, science, civilization, to create and build structures that scientists in 2023 still can't understand how they did those things, it's because they were operating on a whole different level of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
and a whole different level of expectation. They expected to be able to rise above their lower animal nature and experience and achieve almost like a godlike nature. God, that's what the Sphinx literally represents. It
Mm-hmm.
represents their view of what religion is supposed to be about. Not just buying gospel CDs or memorizing scriptures, but
Yeah.
every single day getting better, getting better, getting better, moving beyond, just thinking about yourself, just thinking about what you're going to eat or whatever, and being able to focus and live at a higher state of consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And to even be clear about what higher state of consciousness is and what it looks like, sometimes we think that it is using certain words. And somebody would told me that it's what you wear, and you can tell a person if they have glasses on, they have this, just stuff like that. So people have these different images.
Mm.
So one of the things is I found it fun and learning too at the same time. Speaking on what you're doing is to connect a person to a biofeedback.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put the sensors on your fingers and you put the little thing around your head, and you can put them in a meditative state, like let them listen to music and say a prayer and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when they can begin to see themselves moving from one, they can actually see and feel themselves moving to another level, they begin to unlock
Mm-hmm.
secrets for themselves.
Mm.
And it's awesome. It is. That's when you don't have to tell anybody else about prayer. You know, you, that's when and they go like, "Oh my goodness, oh let me do that again." And so,
Right.
see, that's what I like about what you're saying. So that's a higher state of knowing.
And I'm glad you brought it back to prayer. Um, I'm a part of the Black church, and I have been highly critical of the Black church. Um, the church during our enslavement here in the United States, um, preached a slave theology, a theology trying to get us to um, be cool with being enslaved for the rest of our day. So there's a whole lot to criticize. However, we as Black folk would not be here today without the Black church, because it gave us hope. Even with a messed up
Right,
theology, it gave
right.
us hope. We had faith in positive expectations that even though we're going through all this madness now, we can and will survive this. And if not us, our children and our children's children, they will see a better day. We had faith in a better tomorrow. And all of
Mhm.
that was buttressed or supported by those spiritual technologies that folk that look like me and you gave to the world. You mentioned prayer, but that's just one of those spiritual
That's just
technologies.
that.
There's
Hmm.
prayer, meditation, positive affirmations. All three of those things
Hmm.
speak to um, encoding in yourself and saying over and over again and reminding yourself and lifting up these these hopes and these dreams of a better tomorrow. Faith in positive expectations. Um, the, Bishop Kimathi's sermon, his whole message was, what do you expect? You've got to be careful what you expect, because the same thing that works in the positive can work in the negative. And he gave
Hmm.
some powerful examples. I can't even get into all of them, but we have got to expect the positive. And if you really have faith in it, and if you really expect it, you will then put in the work to make those
Hmm.
expectations a reality. I'll never forget. One day it just hit me like a ton of bricks. So I was sitting back thinking about the fact that, it just hit me one day that I think it was in the 90s, in the late 90s, I was in Atlanta, and I was a group leader of some young adults. And I had us go through an exercise where we wrote down all those things we wanted out of life. I was a group leader, but I participated in the experience as well. And I remember writing down, I want to teach on a college campus. I want to live near one. I want to um, grow in my uh, community ministry. I want to write for all these things. None of this was happening at the time. None of it was happening at the time. None
Hmm.
of it. But I wrote all these things down, and then just one day, a few months ago, it hit me. I said, "I'll be darned if I've literally done everything that was on that list."
On that list.
And so then it made me think, man, I had to expand my list. I've got to think. I got to think bigger because um, this stuff is real. I mean, it
Mhm.
really is. It really is. And I know I'm not the only person that's experienced that.
No. And then, but what it's saying also, as you explain, not only you maybe add to your list, but take your list and make it deeper or wider.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
so that and I say as you speak, I'm just I'm praying for a group of children, and I'm putting the efforts into bringing the children to you as well. And I
Mm,
know that this has to happen. Okay. I just, when I say I know, I don't mean that I have predicted in this and this. It's just that something that I sense right now is the momentum for that, the need for that right now, what I see.
mm,
And I see that the people are already here ready for it. It's just that we need to bring that to happen. And so one of the things is that when you do that, it, I think it tells us that when you have your list checked, it means that now you must take your list and you must share your list at a deeper level, which carries it on to the future.
mm.
You see, and so to me, that's kind of like what I hear when you're speaking about it. Hmm. Yeah.
Teach, doctor, teach.
Listen, you know, but I'm just saying. Oh yeah, you got a lot to that you, as I shared with you, that you do, and that you have. So one of the things is that people who are struggling with expectations,
Mm-hmm.
how would you then say that um, how to use the history to change, help change their expectation, and how to use faith to help change their expectations?
Look at their own history. One way we do that is some people do this at night, some people do it in the morning, where you review your day and you literally write down or you say out loud those things that you're thankful for, because that's part of
Mhm.
your history, right? Uh,
Yes.
I'm thankful that I got through this particular challenge. I'm thankful that someone came to me for help and I was not so consumed with my own madness that I was able to actually be there for someone else. I'm thankful for this, that, the other.
Mhm.
I'm thankful because I usually respond this way in this situation, but today I responded in a better, more positive way. And so you write those things down or you say them out loud or you give a word of thanks. Um, and you do that on a regular and a consistent basis. And you will find yourself not only being thankful for what you did accomplish, but you will find yourself growing in strength to accomplish even more moving forward. Because life is challenge. Life is about challenges, and it's about how you handle those challenges. But when you know that you have had the stuff to handle challenge A, when challenge B comes, you feel more
Yes.
equipped to deal with it.
Yes. Yes. And so the belief, if the faith then is knowing knowing enough about your past. And as my grandfather used to say, you must know the struggle of your ancestors. That the struggle of your ancestors, your great great grandfather, and those things, you need to know more about that so that
Mm-hmm.
you could, and not only the struggle, but the successes of those people. So that's why it's important to tell stories. It's important to keep passing it down. And I regret that they didn't write it or they couldn't write it at that time or they didn't write it in that way, but they did foresee to pass down stories and things like that. But somehow we have the faith in the Bible as to what we read, but our faith seemingly is not in recognizing the struggle and the successes of our ancestors and how that relates to our faith.
And to that point, another thing that came out of the sermon was, yes, it's beautiful to have faith in God, but that's only one level of faith. You got to have faith in yourself. You got to have
Yes.
faith in the God in you. which
Mm-hmm.
in part is also talking about the ancestors, what God has done for Big Mama and Auntie and Uncle Mose and all these people. But having faith in God in you, in your intelligent creativity, your grit and determination to rise to the occasion and to meet these challenges, that faith is just as important. It's just
Mm-hmm.
as important because if you don't believe you can do it, you can't do it. What was that famous quote by Henry Ford? Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Um, I mean, he was a white nationalist, but I mean, even even the most despicable people can speak words of wisdom
Wisdom.
at any given moment, and he was correct. Whether you believe you
Mhm.
can or you believe you can't, you are correct. It,
That's
it's
right.
the, it's the power of
Hmm.
positive expectation.
The positive expectations. Yes. So I was thinking as you were speaking. So you see, expectations is sort of like Pastor Wilson was saying something one time. He was saying that when you have the faith and expectation, you don't look so much. You keep reflecting and looking in the rearview mirror, but you're gathering your judgment, your timing, and etc. from the rearview mirror, so that it can direct you through your windshield. You
And
was just
and and the African concept that says that is Sankofa, right? Looking back in order to to move forward. But another thing to add to that, that's why it's so important to surround yourself with positive people,
mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm,
you can surround yourself with folk that have negative expectations, or folk who, when they hear you talking about all these great things you want to do, they, oh, you can't do that, you'll never do that. And you, not necessarily, but you may allow their lack of vision to
mm-hmm,
cloud your own vision and to
mm-hmm,
block you from actually believing that you can and then working towards those things that God has for you. So the community in which you are a part plays a huge part in this.
mm-hmm.
And we've got to surround ourselves with positive people because we live in a society that on every weak and leaning side, they're trying to tell black folk what we can't do, what we haven't done, what we are not. And um, what do researchers say? For every one negative thing that we hear, we have to hear five positives just to stay
Mm-hmm.
balanced.
Yes,
We are being inundated with negatives all the time as
all the
black people.
time.
And our
Mm-hmm,
children, oh my God.
mm-hmm.
I think one study said that black children on average receive 200 negative messages a day, which
Right,
then means they need to hear 1,000
right,
positive messages every single day
right,
just to stay sane. And we
right,
know black children aren't hearing 1,000 positive messages a day.
right, right, right.
So we got some work to do.
Bill Cosby, and I may have mentioned this to you before. I'm trying to think of the name of his school that was on Broad Street in Philadelphia, and I had an opportunity to visit there.
Mm-hmm.
And his students were most successful. When you go back and they followed those students, they were most successful. And what he would have them do is just what you're saying. They would
Mm-hmm.
have to create pictures of themselves, and they had to, every morning that they walked into the school, the teachers would have to say so many things to them that were real and true, that they were doing well all during the day. But when they got up in the morning, when they got there that morning, they had to say some kind of prayer together,
Mm-hmm.
and then they all had to start reciting about how intelligent they were, how they could use their brain, how they had wonderful families no matter what went on, how they, everything from the outside to the inside, they had to say that every morning, until he said if they didn't believe it when they got there, they believed it when before they left there. You see,
Wow.
and that we have to do. That was one of the things that I really got. I hope I still have and I brought back a recording of it. I think I still have it out there. And he put it on an old record so that people could take it to their schools and their communities. That lets you know how old I am because it wasn't on TV. It was on a vital. So, but anyway, so he called it. I know what he called it. He called his record that he made at that school Black Experience, Black History, Lost, Stolen, and Strayed.
Hmm.
Okay, then, and I'm gonna try to get the whole information. I bet you could pull it up somewhere. But
I was going to ask you to repeat it right now. Can you say
I
that
think it
again?
was something about Black history or Black experience, Black history, lost, stolen, and strayed. And he said if he could teach that and what the turnaround would be, he could teach health and wellness and success.
I
So
found it. It's on YouTube right now.
see there, okay, and by Bill Cosby.
Mm-hmm.
See there, well that's so I went to that and I went to that training and
Mm-hmm.
he challenged everybody to go back to your community and teach the strengths to young people and take this record and play it for them. Okay, and we did, but we didn't want to hear it. There were a lot of people who would not embrace it. But I want you to listen to it. I'm gonna go and look for it. I didn't know it was on YouTube, but I'm gonna go and look for it, so I can listen to that. But it was my mouth was wide open the whole while I was there to see
Mm-hmm.
those students and he had them to learn to walk with their belief. So if you believe this, you didn't walk all slumped over. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't walk with your head in sorrow. You didn't. He was teaching them how to express their beliefs and, as you said, their expectations.
And
You're
as you're
gonna
sharing
go.
that,
Hmm.
and as you're sharing that, I'm thinking about some educators. Um, Tori Dugar Cofield, who was the founding principal of KIP Liberation, um, and Tony Imani Fisher, who worked at that school and later led her own schools. Two incredible um, educators. Uh, they would start their school days off having the children come into a basically like they do at Shape Community Center, almost like
Yes,
a community circle where,
yes,
and I don't remember what they called it, but it was an opportunity for meditation, for centering, for positive affirmations, for all those things
exactly.
that you
Mhm.
said.
Right.
Yeah. But and I was in a meeting with Miss Dugar Cofield, and she said because you know these kids are coming. Some of them are coming from homes where they didn't have enough to eat, where there
Hmm.
was whatever home drama,
Noise all
all,
night.
all
Hmm.
those things going on, and then we expect them to walk in school and be ready to rumble. No, we got to get them situated, and we've got to acknowledge all of that and allow them to again feel
Hmm.
that they are in a safe space to
Hmm.
be themselves, to learn and to grow. And because of that, both of them have had incredible success at all the schools that they've been to, that they've taught at, and that they've led.
And I can see why. That is just
Mm.
so important. And I would like to see their school in operation. I think I would like to go and visit with them and see their school only especially for the expansion for mental health.
Hmm.
You see, and how where they come from, how they can actually share it with other people. The children can even share it with others. You see,
Hmm.
so that's what I'm really interested in. So I know we've talked about this power of expectation, and you started off speaking about the chemistry of it. Okay, and I'm not going to really get into too much of that, but most people do not realize that the power of expectation uh, affects your energy to move forward, your physical energy to move forward. It actually changes um, and I'm trying to the acetylcholine and everything in your body. through the neurons firing. So you can, if this is, I'm talking to another group of people who may have question about whether this is actually occurring, or we just talking about, like the man said, you're just talking about faith, Dr. Lewis. You're just talking about belief. And I don't think it really starts. I don't think it really happens.
Tell your friends to do to do the research, because it has already been shown
Yes,
to rewire your brain.
your brain. That's
Like,
right.
it's amazing, because we literally are created to be lifelong learners, even if we have been through hell and back, through horrible experiences as children, as young adults, and as adults. We can still rewire our brains to think,
Mhm.
act, and move in positive and powerful ways. We've got that ability. And like you were saying, the positive, you can wire your brain to be focused on the negative and make the negative happen, or you can rewire your brain to focus on the positive and the potential, and move your mind, body, and spirit in that direction. And that's, I'm just saying it, but it's already scientific proof for those folk who don't believe it. Go do the research.
That's what I say. Okay, then, and that's so true. So for one of our next talks, I'm going to try to find some of the exact research. And sometimes you have to, for people from Missouri,
Got to
sometimes
show them.
that's the truth. Sometimes you have to show them. So my friend who's going to come down, we're going to do a show me thing, and I'm going to get that ready because he's going to do some biofeedback demonstrations for Faith Health Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And so for people in the community and for the persons who want to learn how to use it for building bridge building, he's going to come down and do some training
And
on
for
that.
those who can't wait, you can go right now and Google positive psychology. There's a whole
Yes, that's right.
field.
That's true. That's
There's
true.
a whole
Mhm.
field of study
Mhm.
that can give you way more information than I
Right.
could
And even
right
how
now.
it heals cancer, even how it heals, people have So it is so awesome that what we're talking about. So I'm going to just leave people with something that someone shared with me. And so Dr. Walker and I were talking, and he shared something with me. He says, so you know what it is that you do? You really are helping people care for themselves and for those you serve. So I'm
Mm.
going to sign off and say thank you so much, because that is so true. All training is treatment and programming that we do in interventions are either to help a person sustain or to help them care for themselves or those that they serve or help. So I'm going to say renew beliefs, rebuild faith, reconnect family and communities. For it's not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines health, happiness, and success. And I want to again thank you for being co host and guest on the show today, Mending Threads, Imani Faith Health Initiative, okay, here in Houston, reaching out to everyone who can view us on Culture Vision TV. Download it on your phone so you can have it with you. All the tips, we give many tips on the show. So, and I'm just going to ask Dr. Walker when he comes back to give us some, with the same topic, to give us some parables, some specific moments in history, some things where we can call on our ancestors that bridge and rebuild and strengthen faith. That'll be the second part. Okay, next month.
All
Okay,
right.
then. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing everybody, same place, same time, same station. God willing. Bye bye.